What is up, my dudes, and welcome back to my channel. Gonna give you guys a little bit of a different view to start off this video with as we go in, and we're gonna start looking at the analyzation of the wreck that I had in my previous video. There are a couple things to keep in mind moving forward. I am not an expert rider by any means. I have not taken any police officer courses or anything like that to verify me. I'm still learning, even though I've been at this for the better part of a decade. Things happen sometimes, and it's moments like these, even though it's a bad thing, it's actually a good thing in a way, because now I know what I was doing wasn't working for me. So let's look at the wreck real quick. Before I get too far into it, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a layout of the way the terrain was, because the camera just doesn't do it justice. The Oregon coast is absolutely beautiful, has mountainous terrain everywhere. It's gorgeous to drive through. I highly recommend you take the 101, but if you're on a motorcycle, I do recommend you take precautions. So the particular lighthouse I stopped at because my battery died. The lighthouse was about 50 to 75 feet below the roadway. There was a little bridge that you could see in some of the footage. That bridge was the actual Highway 101 that they were working on, and that the truck that would cut me off was actually there, part of that refilling the vehicles that were there. But if you look at this freeze frame right here, if you look to the left, that is the way that I came using Highway 101, and to the right is where the bridge would be. Coming from that way, I know that that is a blind corner. I could barely see the roadway that I'm currently traveling up towards, where I'm going to have this accident. I came up on it pretty quick and almost actually wrecked going into it. But it's a blind corner. I can kind of see through the brush, and that's kind of what I'm looking for, because even though I'm going to a stoplight and I'm going to stop there, I need to be able to see and listen for any vehicles that are coming that way. So I'm not paying attention to this truck that's coming to the right, even though it looks by the camera to be directly in my field of view. I have a bad tendency to look with my eyes when I'm looking at things like that, because I'm also using my peripherals. So let's look at this tanker real quick, this truck that's right in front of me. I can't blame him really too much for cutting the corners the way he did. He is driving a longer vehicle that's kind of in a short turn, and he could not obviously see me coming up from down below when he was turning. He would see me last minute. Now what he should have done is moved over a little bit the way that I did. I moved closer to the right side of the road so that I could give myself enough room and him enough room for do anything. My plan of action, if anything was going to happen, is I was going to go off the road, but in a more controlled manner. As you've seen in the video last week, there was a little fill that I was able to pull off of once I got the bike back upright to reset everything and make sure that my bike was good to go. My plan was to pull off into that little field. The actual little ditch that I would set my bike into wasn't that deep. I could have gone over it just fine, and I might have laid the bike down there, but at least it would be in the grass, and I wouldn't have had to lay it down on the concrete. But before I go any further, we're going to change the scenery just a little bit. While Tampa Armature Works is absolutely gorgeous to look at, especially with this bend in the river, it's a little hot up here, and I'm going to go find some shade. Well, I said I'd give you guys a better view. So, now, where were we? Alright, so back to terrain. What you actually cannot see in the video is the stop sign actually is on an incline, so it's still tilted kind of downhill the way they snaked it around. So it made my lean angle just a little bit to the right, kind of like how my bike is sitting right now versus me. As I said before, there's a little ditch that was right off the side of the roadway, pretty close to the actual blacktop portion. And because I was so close to the edge, it's actually where my foot placement was going to be, and I wasn't paying attention to that because at the time I was just trying not to get hit by the tanker. That's, as you'll see in my mirror to the right over here, he actually cut into my lane even more once he did get past me, so he wasn't even worried about hitting me at all. That's what that tells me. And because I had to go too far to the right, and because of that ditch that was sitting right there, my foot placement was in that, and I leaned over just a little too far for the center of gravity on the way to my bike at the time, and it just fell over. The other mistake I made that probably would have helped me, I don't know if it would have saved me or not, just because of the way everything unfolded, my handlebars turned to the right because of the weight of the bike. As you'll see right now, the bike kind of wants to do a natural lean to the right because those handlebars are facing the right. If I turn the other way, it wants to do a lean to the left. So me turning the handlebars to the right did not help my situation at all. Now moving on to the true human error that I made going through. I packed way too much stuff for this trip. I was moving from Tacoma to Tampa, and I did not send enough stuff with the packers. I did not plan out the packing of my bike the way I should have. Looking at this freeze frame, what looks like a lot of weight on top, it actually is a lot of weight for what was supposed to be on the bike. I hadn't been riding with a passenger in a long time or any kind of dead weight, and I hadn't practiced with it. But the actual heaviest portions are actually in the saddlebag, and I cannot show them to you because YouTube is let's just say, yeah, they get pretty offended when you start showing stuff like that. So out of everything, I think that is what caused the most headache in the end, because if it hadn't been for all the weight, I might not have dropped the bike. I might have been able to get my foot down in time, maybe able to have caught the bike. And so another thing I want to point out is the way I let the bike fall. I let it fall. Why did I let it fall? Because, well, this bike right here weighs 850 pounds dry. Okay, well, I shouldn't say dry because that's not entirely correct. Without all of my other gear, this bike weighs 850 pounds ish. I'm not sure of the exact weight. With all of my gear, it was probably upwards of 1,000 pounds without me on it. So there was absolutely no way I was going to try and catch this bike. The bike can be fixed. I can't. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it to everybody who ever rides a motorcycle, who tries to catch a motorcycle, just let it fall. You're going to do way more damage to yourself than you were ever going to do to that bike. Speaking of the bike, you can see the way I went over there. Typically, how you want to handle a big bike is you want to press your butt up against the seat and grab the lowest point. Well, I couldn't get my butt on the bike itself to kind of put some leverage onto it and get a better positioning for the fulcrum point and lifting the bike in, because it was sitting actually in the ditch. It slid off of the pavement from what little bit it was on the pavement, and I just couldn't get low enough to get that point. So what I was actually doing at that point is I was deadlifting this bike out of that ditch before I could get my butt in position to support most of the weight to walk it the rest of the way forward. This is actually one of my more proud moments for myself. It was a personal accomplishment because by my estimation, this bike, with the way it was sitting and me having to deadlift it, I think I was deadlifting probably anywhere from 350 to 550 pounds. I give a broad range because I do not know. I know it's not the entire, 850 to 1,000 pounds that this bike was weighing at the time. But for me to lift that much, I was also doing it at an incline. So I was lifting the weight against the hill because of the way everything was sitting. And I absolutely love the fact that I can pick this bike up. One of the biggest things every biker says, especially those who ride cruisers, if you cannot pick up the bike, you shouldn't be riding it. So for me to be able to pick up the bike at an incline, and as heavy as it was just a good personal accomplishment. So we're going to talk about this portion here. Why did I put the kickstand down? Well, for those of you that have never picked up a bike or don't ride bikes, there's probably not a whole lot of you that don't watch this channel. The left side of the bike has nothing for it. If I was to lean to the bike to the left and it was falling that way, I would pick it up and then put the kickstand down and raise it up enough and then set it on the kickstand. That's actually much easier to me because you don't have to lift the bike all the way up. But when you're lifting from the right, you run the risk of the bike falling the other way. So instead of me trying to catch the bike at its center point like it is right now, to where the weight is balanced, and to keep it from falling over again, I put the kickstand down so I could just hold the brake over here and let it fall on that kickstand. But in order to do this and do this properly, I had to make sure the bike was still in gear. Now, the bike was obviously in gear because I was moving and the clutch was pulled in when I stopped and the bike actually fell over, but it's always good to double check. I'm at an incline, I'm going up a hill. If I was to actually get this bike upright, but it wasn't in gear and it was at neutral, and this bike was to slide off the mountain, well, I just picked this bike up for nothing. So all in all, what could I have done here? Well, I could have packed better. I could have planned my packing out, I could have practiced with it, and I could have planned my route a little bit better. I should have figured out the whole battery situation on GoPro, and I wouldn't have had to stop at this lighthouse. I wasn't planning on there because while I was in a beautiful area, it just wasn't something that I was interested in seeing. I was still trying to make up time from missing my mark the day before, but it is what it is, and you just got to keep moving forward with it. Another thing is pay attention to the terrain and the foot placement. So a lot of that happens like right now. I am on a slight incline, if you cannot tell, going into this waterway. Well, the only thing stopping anything from going over this is the wooden piles. And I don't know if you see this, but my bike fits perfectly in there. So as of right now, my bike is currently sitting in gear and it's sitting on the transmission weight. That way the bike doesn't go rolling forward. You got to pay attention to terrain, you got to pay attention to footing. When I'm stopping anywhere, if you see over there, there's sand, a significant amount of that, and I'm going to slip and fall. It's just the way things are. So even when you're parking or going down a road or you're stopping, you really got to kind of glance down and see where your footing is. But all in all, it was a good lesson for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think that's going to about do it. I don't have much else. I'm going to take some pictures while I'm here. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like, comment, subscribe, and share button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.